Have you ever wondered how people in those huge, drafty medieval castles and ancestral homes stayed warm? I mean, look at them towering stone walls, massive windows, and ceilings so high you could fly a kite. It seems like a recipe for freezing all winter long. You'd think the moment the fireplace went out, the place would turn into an icebox. But here is the fascinating secret. Many of these grand old homes stayed surprisingly cozy long after the last embers died down. And the reason isn't just about bigger fires. It's about brilliant, ancient engineering and a deep understanding of something we now call thermal mass. Let's step back in time. Picture a grand medieval hall. The fire is roaring in a colossal hearth, big enough to roast a whole ox. The air is filled with the smell of wood smoke and roasting meat. But look closer at the construction of the room itself. Those thick stone walls you see? They're not just for defense or to look impressive. They are, in fact, giant passive batteries for heat. This is the core principle of thermal mass. Materials like stone, brick, and even dense earth have a high thermal mass, which means they can absorb and store a huge amount of heat energy. Throughout the day, as the fire blazed, it wasn't just heating the air in the room. So a significant portion of that radiant heat was being soaked up, slowly but surely, by the immense stone walls, the thick slate floors, and the massive chimney structure itself. Think of it like charging a giant power bank, but instead of electricity, it's storing heat. Stone is a slow conductor, so it takes a long time to heat up. But once it's warm, it also takes a very, very long time to cool down. So, when the household went to bed and the fire was banked for the night, the real magic began. The air temperature would start to drop, but the walls and floors would begin to release their stored heat back into the room. It was a slow, gentle radiation of warmth that kept the ambient temperature from plummeting. Instead of a sudden chill, the great hall would remain comfortably warm for hours, sometimes even until morning. It was a simple yet incredibly effective form of central heating, powered by the very structure of the building. This wasn't just accidental. Medieval builders and architects understood this principle, even if they didn't have the scientific vocabulary we have today. They deliberately chose these dense, heavy materials for their thermal properties. You can see this design philosophy not just in castles, but in old stone farmhouses and manors all across Europe. The thicker the walls, the better the heat retention. But the walls were only part of the story. Let's talk about the fireplace itself. The classic medieval hearth was often a huge, open affair in the center of the room or against a wall. While it looked grand, it was notoriously inefficient at heating the air directly. A lot of the hot air just went straight up the chimney. However, its primary job was radiating heat outwards in all directions. This radiant heat was perfect for being absorbed by the thermal mass of the room. Later on, the design evolved. The Rumford fireplace, designed in the late 1700s, was a major innovation. It had a tall, shallow firebox and angled sides. This design was specifically engineered to reflect as much radiant heat as possible out into the room, rather than letting it escape up the chimney. This made the process of charging the stone walls even more efficient. The walls would get warmer, faster, and store even more heat for later. Now, you might be thinking, what about those huge, drafty windows? You're right. Windows were a major source of heat loss. Glass was expensive and difficult to make in large panes, so early windows were often just small openings covered with oiled paper or animal hide shutters. But as technology improved, they came up with clever solutions. Heavy tapestries were a key part of the medieval interior design for a reason. They weren't just for decoration. Hanging a thick, woolen tapestry over a wall or a window added a crucial layer of insulation. It trapped a layer of air between the tapestry and the cold stone, slowing down heat loss dramatically. It's the same principle as wearing a sweater. The wool itself isn't what keeps you warm. It's the air it traps. Wooden shutters were also essential. At night, heavy wooden shutters would be closed and barred, not just for security, but to create another barrier against the cold night air. The combination of shutters on the outside and heavy drapes or tapestries on the privacy was surprisingly effective at minimizing heat loss through windows. Let's go even deeper into the layout of these homes. The design was often strategic. The most important rooms, like the Great Hall or the Solar, which was the private living room for the family, were often situated in the sunniest part of the castle to take advantage of passive solar gain during the day. They were also typically located above the kitchens. Think about it. The massive kitchen hearths and ovens were running for most of the day. All that rising heat would travel upwards, warming the floorboards of the rooms above. It was another clever integrated heating system built right into the architecture. And what about the floors? They weren't just cold stone. They were often covered with layers of rushes or straw, which would be periodically replaced. This wasn't just for comfort underfoot. It was another layer of insulation, trapping air and preventing cold from seeping up from the ground or the unheated cellars below. In wealthier homes, expensive woven rugs would serve the same purpose, adding both beauty and warmth. So, let's put it all together. You have a roaring fire that's not just heating the air, but is pouring radiant energy into the very bones of the building, the thick stone walls and floors. These act as a massive heat sink, a thermal battery. You have heavy tapestries and wooden shutters insulating the windows and walls, trapping warm air inside. You have the strategic placement of rooms, leveraging heat from the kitchens below and the sun outside. And you have insulated floors covered in rushes or rugs. When the fire dies down, the entire structure becomes a gentle, radiant heater. The walls, the floors, the massive chimney stack itself, they all slowly release their stored warmth back into the space. It's a holistic system where every element of the building works together to maintain a stable, comfortable temperature. It's a far cry from our modern on-demand heating systems that blast hot air. But it was incredibly effective and, in many ways, much more sustainable. This ancient knowledge is actually making a comeback today in modern, eco-friendly architecture. The principles of thermal mass, passive solar design, and high levels of insulation are at the heart of building energy-efficient homes. Rediscovering the wisdom that medieval builders knew intuitively, that a house should not just be a shell to keep the rain out, but a dynamic system that works with nature to create a comfortable living environment. So the next time you see a picture of a grand old ancestral home and shiver at the thought of living there in winter, remember the secrets hidden in its stones. It wasn't an icebox. It was a cleverly designed, self-regulating thermal machine. A testament to the ingenuity of our ancestors who knew how to turn a cold stone fortress into a warm and welcoming home. The warmth didn't just come from the fire. It came from the very heart of the building itself. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey back in time as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more hidden histories of how we used to live. See you next time.